Hello there, Kristen Dombrowski. This is an instructional video for our week one in Education 741. I thought it would be fun to take a moment to show off my virtual Bitmoji classroom. I don't know if you've created one yet, but it is a lot of fun and a lot of hard work at the same time. I currently work for the School District of South Milwaukee, and I am the elementary literacy coach for special educators half-time, and the other half-time, I am a reading specialist for one of the elementary schools that I service out of four. So I get to work with students in K5, and I work with teachers K5, and I also work with you in the university setting. So I'm very lucky that I have all sorts of pots on the stove, and they all inform each other, and it's really interesting what I can take back and forth from different elements of my job. So I just thought I'd show off my Bitmoji classroom. We are starting the school year virtually. Teachers are required to report in person, however. And this, I am actually reporting to you from my home. This is home our schoolroom at home because my 5-year-old is starting her school year as a kindergartner, her first day of school, and we will be learning together at home. So let's see, let's take a look at what we're doing this week for week one. The very first discussion post I'm asking you to talk about is this concept of balanced literacy. I want to make sure that we know what we're talking about when we say balanced literacy, because I went to Google and I typed in balanced literacy, and this is what I got. A lot of really different and interesting approaches. So I'd like to hear how you define balanced literacy, how your school district is defining balanced literacy, whether or not those concepts are in harmony or not. And so, for example, I wanted to show you just what my school district defines as balanced literacy. We have two different graphic organizers like this. One is for K through 2, and it looks slightly different than our balanced literacy 3-5. We have all 5 of these elements here: read aloud with accountable talk, shared reading, word study. If you use word study in your post, I'd like you to define what word study means and what that looks like to you philosophically and in practice, what you're doing in your classroom if you're doing word study. We have interactive writing workshop, and at the heart of it all, reading workshop. And this is our goal in a traditional setting. This is not what's actually happening in our virtual setting. We only get about 60 minutes a day to accomplish all of this. So lots of prioritizing and decisions need to be made in order to try to hit as many of these things as possible throughout the course of a week, maybe not a day. And then in grades 3 through 5, we drop shared reading and interactive writing, and we really put a lot more effort into our small groups of reading workshop. That's where we would see strategy groups, table conferences, book clubs, extra word work. Again, I'd like to know what that means in your district or to you. In my district, that means words their way. It also means using, perhaps making words as an RTI response. And conferring, which we will talk about quite a bit in this course. So what is balanced literacy to you? I've also linked on Canvas a really interesting article. It's thought-provoking, and I'm not posting it as gospel because there are opinions in there in addition to research references. But I'd like you to take a moment, if you can, it's optional, to peruse this article, At a Loss for Words: How a Flawed Idea is Teaching Millions of Kids to Be Poor Readers. Because perhaps in your district, like mine, over the past year, you may have had a lot of discussion about, you may have even heard the phrase reading wars come up quite a bit, and a lot of calling into question what belongs in a balanced literacy program. So in order to make sense of this article, you would need to have a pretty good understanding of what the 3 cueing system is. And if you haven't encountered that yet in your teaching career, what that means is it's referencing MSV, meaning, structure, and visual. And these are different cueing systems that students use to try to make sense of what they're reading. When we talk about meaning, whether or not the student is being metacognitive and stopping to ask, hey, did that word actually make sense, or did I make a mistake? Do I need to go back and fix that? Structure refers to whether something sounds right in terms of, did that sound like good English, or did that, stop and make me think, because that didn't actually make sense as a sentence. That didn't sound like a common English structure. And we might think about parts of speech and whether or not I said a noun and probably a verb belonged there. And then the last cueing system is visual, and does it look right? And for that, we're looking at graphic cues. What are the letters actually telling me what the word is? So if I notice that a student says the word horse instead of house, they share a lot of the same letters, horse and house. So that tells me that student is probably using visual. They've noticed a lot of the letters that they were expecting to be there. They just said the wrong word, but they were relying on visual cues to make that. As opposed to if they had said pony instead of horse. Well, none of those letters are the same, so I'm certain they're not looking at visual cues there. They're probably either looking at the picture to make meaning, or they might be anticipating the part of speech that should be a noun there, so they know that they have to say a noun. So pony made sense and made that English sentence work. So that's the three cueing system, or MSB. This article brings up the reading wars, time-honored tradition of going back and forth between whether or not phonics is the best approach or whole language is the best approach. And I think we're at the point in our research and understanding right now where we know that there is an undeniable conclusion. Phonics is absolutely essential. It's integral. It's critical. Fill in whatever word you want here. You are not getting away without teaching kids phonics. It's absolutely necessary for students to thrive and to read for meaning. We also might call that orthographic mapping, or I've also heard it called phoneme grapheme mapping. A lot of different terms for that, but mapping is the idea here that we're going to look at each individual letter. We're going to think about what each individual letter sounds like, and we're going to blend it together. So if I have b, e, d, I know I have the word bed. Sure, that works out really nice when words are phonetic, but what about when words aren't phonetic? We can still use orthographic mapping for most parts of the word, but let's talk about some other things that we need in order to understand that word in just a few seconds here. Then we have a question here, should we be teaching whole word and MSB strategies? Should we be teaching both together? The article would suggest no, that we're actually doing more harm than good by teaching students what they call our strategies for struggling readers. We're teaching all kids to be struggling readers. I think there's a difference between assessing which strategies striving readers are using versus actually teaching them to use those strategies. So later in this course, we're going to look quite a lot at running records and doing an MSB analysis. I don't think we should drop that. I think that's really important. That tells me when I'm working, trying to diagnose a striving reader, which strategies are they using to try to make sense of that? It gives me a lot of valuable information about what that student is doing up here. I don't think that's the same as teaching them to use those strategies, however. The article talks a bit about that's not reading. When a student has memorized a text, or when they're relying on picture cues, pointer power, Sammy skip, whatever strategies that we've seen in classrooms before. And I don't know, I push back a little bit on that. Is that not reading? I'm certain that's how I learned to read. I was very proud that I had memorized a book. Right now, I am teaching my 5-year-old to use a lot of these strategies, and it's giving her the confidence to approach books. And through those strategies, I'm also teaching her a lot of important print concepts, following text left to right, looking for different text structures, point to the title, and she is understanding that words have meaning and that we should be tapping and touching each word as we say it. We're getting a lot of skills out of this. In addition, through the workshop model, I can hand my daughter a pile of books and say, go read them. And even if she doesn't yet have the phonics skills that she needs in order to orthographically map and phonetically understand each word, she has a lot of really great skills in order to interact with those books and to try to get some meaning out of them while we're infusing some phonics skills. The article also talks about what we need to comprehend a word. We need exposure and vocabulary. That's where sometimes phonics can fail us. When I would give a running record to a student and they would come across the word nebula, for example, they might say nebula, nebula. They have phonetically transcribed that word and they have said it correctly. However, I can tell that they have not had exposure to that word and they do not have the vocabulary that they need in order to bring that word to life because they've not heard it before. So I really do think that there's a place in our reading world for so many of these elements to coexist. And my hope was to share this article with you just to get you thinking, because as a reading specialist, there will be times when people come to you and they really want to know your opinion and where you stand on certain issues. And through this course, I hope you get the chance to stop and be reflective and think about how you might respond to that. I also don't think it's time to throw out any of the programs that we're using in our schools. I just think that perhaps we need to take a really close look about how we're prioritizing our time and what we need to infuse into our already thriving curriculum. For example, in my school district, we do use units of study, and we're also looking at ways to infuse more phonics experience for students. We're looking at purchasing a program called Heggerty Phonics, phonemic awareness instruction. It's a lot of the pieces that are missing, and we just need to find a way to give kids what they need. So if you would like to respond to that in your discussion post this week, if you have some thoughts on this article, please do so. I absolutely want to hear what you have to say, the good, bad, and the ugly. You can love this article, you can hate this article. The whole point is just to get you thinking and talking. So is that the last slide? Yep. All right. That's it for our week 1 introduction video. And I look forward to seeing and hearing your thoughts on Canvas. All right. Bye.